All right, we're back here with Chapter 3 of my NXT timeline, 2019 to 2021, in which was the Wednesday Night War. Opportunity arises. In 2019, AEW was formed. They announced that their show Dynamite would be airing on Wednesday nights at 8. However, another wrestling show was also airing on Wednesday nights at 8, and that was NXT. Now, some people were against the war. They're saying NXT had no chance to beat AEW. And I was on the other side of the fence. I saw opportunity. I saw interest and intrigue. If AEW can take down NXT, in which was called the gold standard, the number one brand of North America, the true alternative, the best wrestling company out there, if AEW can beat NXT, and they can move one inch closer to becoming competition to the WWE main roster product. However, if NXT can beat AEW, see, Vince, he's never really cared much for NXT because it was a money loser. They didn't make him money and didn't draw him anything. That's why people failed on the main roster. Vince saw these guys didn't draw him money in NXT. He didn't know who these people were, so he buried them. He buried him. But if NXT can take down AEW before they get red hot, maybe Vince will have a change in opinion. Maybe he'll start pushing NXT. That's kind of why you saw NXT win the Survivor Series, because they won a ratings battle against AEW. And while NXT was looking like they can take up ground and put pressure on Dynamite, something happened. That was the COVID-19 pandemic. This is kind of what set AEW apart from NXT. AEW was touring. They were doing live shows on the road, which is something that NXT should have done, but they failed. When the pandemic hit, that kind of took away NXT's energy. You see, for years, they've always been a crowd-driven product. I respected that about them. But when the pandemic hit, where we had 0 fans in attendance, they had no idea what to do. NXT became desperate. So they renamed Full Sail University to the Capitol Wrestling Center. They had empty arena shows, people wrestling, doing promos on TV with no fans in attendance, except for the Performance Center staff wearing masks, sitting behind gates and plexiglass, and this looked awful. It was terrible. It was boring. There were a few good shows on NXT, but it just wasn't the same. Not saying that NXT sucked, not saying that these shows were bad. They just weren't eventful like the others. Same thing every week. They also had COVID-19 positive test breakouts almost every day. Unlike AEW, their shows were taking place in a semi-outdoor stadium. They were in Amphitheater Daly's place. At first they had their talent beat a crowd, but they were spread out throughout the building, so you wouldn't really notice. You knew they were there. You knew there weren't fans in attendance, but they created an illusion that it looked like there were fans in the building. And then in August, they brought back fans, small capacity, 10 to 15%. That's better than having no fans at all. And they were beating the WWE to the punch on bringing back fans to attendance. And they did that. And the shows were much better. As much as I hated AEW being in Daly's place for a year, I have to say the COVID-19 pandemic, the shows they put on during that pandemic were better than their first year in business. Did a couple of AEW videos, check them out. But AEW won the COVID-19 battle. That's how they won the Wednesday Night War. They put on better shows. They were in a better building. They just appealed to a wider audience, while NXT they didn't know what to do. NXT, they went into desperation mode. They did hot shot booking. At the Great American Bash, they had a fatal 4-way for the North American Championship. The winner the next night would challenge Karrion Kross for the NXT. The winner would challenge Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. Keith Lee won the Fatal 4-Way, becomes the North American Champion. Next night, he beats Adam Cole, ends his year-long NXT title reign. Now he's the NXT champion. Now, to me, at NXT TakeOver 30, I would have done Kross versus Cole. But they didn't do that. They did Kross versus Keith Lee. And to me, that's not good because you're setting up Keith Lee as transitional champion. What happened? You had Keith Lee relinquish the North American title. I think Damian Priest won that in a ladder match. Then he had a 1-month-long NXT title reign, dropped it to Kross, only for Kross to get injured. They had to strip him of the title. They had a Super Tuesday. They had a show called Super Tuesday. They did a 4-way Iron Man match between Finn Balor, Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa. That match ended in a draw. Since Finn and Adam Cole were the two men with the highest amount of points, they did another Super Tuesday the next week. Finn and Adam Cole, they clashed. Finn Balor beats Adam Cole, becomes a 2-time NXT champion. His reign lasted about 6 months, only to drop it to Kross again, and Kross only held that belt for 4 months before it dropped it to Samoa Joe. And then Samoa Joe got stripped of the title right around September when NXT 2.0 came into effect. There was a Fatal 4-Way. Ciampa wins the belt, well, only for him to drop the Braun Breaker at, I think was that Vengeance Day, I believe? Only for Braun Breaker to drop it a month later to Dolph Ziggler. Yes, Dolph Ziggler. A mid-carder who's been in the WWE for 16 years is somehow the NXT champion. The guy who hasn't done anything important in the last, 5 years is the NXT champion. Wow. And on the women's side, you had a female version of the Dusty Tag Team Classic. I was not a fan of that. They should have done the Mae Young Classic, make it a tag team edition. So Raquel and Dakota Kai, they won the Dusty Classic. They beat Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. The winner would get a shot at the tag team titles. And they lost. They lost to Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. And then the next week, they were rewarded with women's tag belts. I was against. What was the point of the women's tag team championship match with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler? What was the point of that? And then they lost that same night to Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. So what was the point of all this? You could have made the Dusty Classic finals for the new women's tag team titles. But instead, you buried both teams. And the women's tag team championships have not felt important at all. I think they're around the waist of Toxic Attraction, but the women's division down there has no teams. They did hot shot booking. They gave title matches to people that didn't deserve them. They gave championships to people that didn't need them, and their reigns weren't that long. They did nothing in those reigns. Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, they all had great NXT title reigns in the past. It was because they were given enough time to breathe and develop. They were longer reigns. Finn and Cole held the titles for over a year. But ever since the Wednesday Night War, man, the NXT championships, they feel like hot potato, just like the main roster. Speaking of the main roster, they relied way too much on the main roster talent and part-timers, which was a rarity in the old NXT. They brought down AJ Styles, Dolph Ziggler, Charlotte, Finn Balor, and even Ember Moon. Now, I've been saying for years that NXT needs to bring back main roster talent in case they get injured or the ones that aren't performing at a high standard. But it's only if they use the main roster crew to build new stars. And this is where they failed. They only used them as a ratings ploy to beat AEW. They also brought down part-timers like Kurt Angle, Edge, and Ted DiBiase. Now, I like these guys, but these guys weren't here to build new talent. They were here for ratings ploys. Edge came down to NXT hoping they can get a boost over AEW. With the NXT draw 600,000 viewers. Edge used to be a man that used to draw over 6 million. In the Ruthless Aggression era, comes to NXT and get a 600K. It's not good, man. It's not good. I like the guys they brought down, but the work at the end of the day didn't really mean anything. Ember Moon, she's fired. Finn Balor's back on the main roster doing nothing. Kurt Angle's gone. Ted DiBiase, we haven't seen him since. Pete Dunne, they moved him up to SmackDown, called him Butch. What was the point of all this? Devaluing the NXT TakeOver name. I used to love TakeOver. Even during the years when NXT was having its downfall, I still loved TakeOver. But they devalued that. The reason why is because all the NXT TakeOvers were in the Performance Center or Full Sail or the Capitol Wrestling Center, and it had the same look as their regular TV show did. Even though the TakeOvers, the wrestling quality was all right, so it had no interest or any value because it was like a regular episode of NXT on a Sunday or Saturday night. And a lot of these TakeOvers happen on free TV on USA Network. The Great American Bash, Halloween Havoc, Super Tuesday 1 and 2, New Year's Evil, Vengeance, Roadblock, Stand and Deliver, a 2-night event. TakeOvers used to be 1 night, 5 matches only. This one needed 2 nights, and they didn't really need that. They didn't. Most of these shows competed on the same night as AEW. These were just ratings ploys. Most of these shows weren't that good. Stand and Deliver was pretty good. Vengeance Day, New Year's Evil, they were good. Great American Bash, I like that one. Halloween Havoc, Roadblock, they were okay. And the Super Tuesday shows, boy, they suck. Just ratings ploy written all over the show. None of the matches mattered at the end. They ruined what make TakeOvers special. The old NXT had TakeOvers, 4 to 5 times a year, usually piggybacking off the main roster pay-per-views. They felt special because they were in bigger buildings. The matches meant something, but these, they were just there to combat AEW. And at the end of the war, NXT was demolished in the ratings. I kept track of their ratings for over 2 years. And look at the tally, AEW 66, NXT 14. At one point, I believe the tally was, at the end of 2019, the tally was like 10-3 or 10-4 or something like that. NXT had a chance. But when the new year hit, AEW just went on a run. And NXT could never catch up. To me, Triple H, I don't think he cared about his own brand. I blame him. He was bragging and boasting for many years how NXT is number 1. But here comes AEW and takes that all away. They were losing the ratings. They had no fans because of the pandemic, and Triple H, he didn't care. He didn't care. Triple H never cared about the fans. He cared about boosting his ego. When his ego was being affected by AEW, he didn't know what to do. He became desperate. During the first couple months of the war, Triple H should have stepped up and said, hey, Vince, I don't think we should move to Wednesdays. We're not ready. But I don't think he said anything at all. He just said that moving to Wednesdays is just a natural progression of the brand, which was a complete lie. But even if he said something, if what he said got shot down, he should have taken the war as a top priority. For the first couple months, he should have wrote down what AEW is doing right. What are they doing wrong? What do they need to improve on? And the next year in 2020, the first 3 months of the year, Road to WrestleMania, they need to go on the road, do live shows, and grow the brand. Then when the pandemic happens, they would be set. They could lose a couple battles, but still be all right. And if they lost that energy that the fans gave them, they should come up with ways to create new energy. Then when the pandemic was starting to go away. They should have went back out on the road. Instead, here they are, still in full sail. They're not in full sail anymore. They're in the Performance Center. I'm sorry. The Wednesday Night War van had opportunity, but Triple H, Vince, the networks, they just screwed the pooch. The Wednesday Night War could have been something beautiful, but instead of trying to reach the maximum amount of viewers, they got the least amount of viewers. If you look at the Wednesday Night War, I mean, you were seeing ratings of like AEW 900,000, NXT 700,000, AEW 1 million, NXT 500K. These numbers, they don't even pale in comparison to the Wednesday Night War. I mean, the Monday Night War. Raw versus Nitro, you had ratings of 7 million to 9 million. Saturday night's main event even drew 33 million viewers. And here we are, with both these shows barely cracking 1 million. Terrible. Wednesday Night War, man, I saw opportunity, I saw potential, but Wednesday Night War could never live up to the Monday Night War. Hell, even to the new Monday Night War that TNA had with WWE back in 2010. They had more interest than this. But that's the chapter 3 of the Wednesday Night War saga of my NXT timeline. I will see y'all for chapter 4 for the aftermath.